John Schreiner tonight, who's at home with his very ill wife. So we wish the Schreiner family a quick recovery. Brody Heidemann, the pride of Gretna, Nebraska, producing tonight. You can get a hold of the show at After Hours 1620, where you can also go retweet the gift for our wings and enter yourself into a drawing to win a $25 gift card to Cunningham's Pub tonight. We got a great show lined up for you. Kirby Smart wants the smoke. We may pivot on that. We're going to see. We're going to find out. We may call it audible at 6:15 because there's also a pressing issue going around the high school ranks in the city of Omaha. So we're going to talk about Kirby Smart. We're going to talk about the issues facing Benson High School at 6:15. We may talk about both because they're kind of relatable. And then at 6:30, will, won't, should, the games we should, will, and won't be watching this weekend in football. It's a great slate, spoiler alert. Buy or sell on several different topics, including things that happened around the NCAA offices today, and one Dan Lanning. We'll give you our Papillion Sanitation Trash Takes tonight. Then our good friend John Walker from the Omaha World Herald joins us to talk about Creighton's new court, losing out on a top 50 prospect, and a whole lot more. We are brought to you by Bellevue University. If you want to keep up to date on all things Bellevue athletics, download the BU Bruins app to your smartphone tonight. Matt Rule took to the podium a couple days ago and had a lot to say. And his ability to dive into numbers and be able to remember exactly what he's seen on stat sheets and on film and be able to pull it out in front of the media is impressive, because when he comes to the podium, he's usually coming straight out of practice into that room. And the fact that Indiana has scored 80 points in fourth quarters this season, I mean, it's really Jekyll and Hyde, right? Nebraska has really fallen apart in the second half in some games, and Indiana has been able to pull away and be dominant in the second half. So when you're talking about Indiana scoring 80 points in the fourth quarter and Nebraska really controlling the first half of games, that to me is going to be the game within the game. I think it's going to be really important for Nebraska to get out and score early on Saturday.
Yeah, and I found it interesting, just with all of the stuff that Matt Rule had to say. Matt, the Rain Man Rule, talking about the fact that Indiana leads the Big Ten right now in passing. It was very complimentary to Cignetti in Indiana. That was the one thing I was surprised with, is he opened up that press conference 2 days ago being overly complimentary in my mind, saying that they're probably a top 10 football team in the country.
Well, and I was listening to K Ford, who was on with John and Josh before we came on, and he kind of echoed that sentiment and thinking that Indiana probably should be ranked closer to 13th in especially the way they've been as dominant as they have. And I agree with him. I mean, if you take their name off it and you keep it in the Big Ten and you put Minnesota's name in that situation, I think you're looking at probably a higher rated team than Indiana is right now.
And I think that's a little bit fair, but I still always, with any kind of a ranking system, I always think it's proof is in the pudding.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And
I mean,
but whatever the AP saw was obviously not within the pudding for them.
It's just one of those things that, and I think around here we have a little bit better of an appreciation for it, because Nebraska hasn't been able to take care of business like they quote should in the past 8 years, right? And the fact is, winning is difficult. Vanderbilt beat Alabama. Like, beating a Power 5 or even a college football team in general is difficult. And the fact that Indiana has been able to beat everybody put in front of them and do it as convincingly as they have, the quarterback at Indiana is top 5 in the Heisman odds in week 7 of college football. That's impressive in its own right.
I mean, yes, it is impressive, but I don't want to be that guy, but look at who they've played. It hasn't been the greatest of competition yet. I will, on the other hand, they have been blowing them out and having very convincing performances in games where it matters.
And I think that's as important as winning, man. I really do. And if you can go out and take care of business and beat the teams that you're supposed to, that's what separates the good teams from the great teams, in my opinion. Because if you go out and you win the games that you're supposed to and you lose all the games that you aren't, I think that's a cult, and it's what got Bo Pelini fired in Lincoln, even though he was winning 9 games. And not to call Kurt Cignetti Bo Pelini, obviously there isn't necessarily that much of, to your point, proof in the pudding yet. But for Nebraska this weekend, we talked about it. Indiana scored 80 points in the fourth quarter. Nebraska has scored just 44. So, and you've got 2 whole second halves where Nebraska hasn't scored a touchdown in it. And if we're going to talk about keeping pace, and I think that's the one thing for me that's been a little bit head scratching about Nebraska and why I think the bye week came at the perfect time, because you haven't really seen this offense move with a whole lot of rhythm. And you could look at the run game and point to that as a reason, but like Dylan Raiola's moxie has kind of faltered a little bit, and I think that Illinois game was a little bit of a wake-up call for him. And I think in a week where he just needed to get away from football, this was probably the perfect week for it.
Yeah, and I mean, like Matt Rule said, he couldn't have been more excited about the fact to say, this is the perfect time for this to happen. The fact that we have a bye week right now and we can just get everyone off the field and onto the couch for a little bit and not have to think about football. Let the kids catch up on their anime. Which I thought that was a
really weird reference.
Which I thought was a really odd comment, because we all know that the kids are playing NCAA football 25 right now, Matt.
People forget.
People love it. People love the game. But, Matt Rule talking about the fact that he was grinding tape. Dylan Raiola was grinding tape.
Yeah, what did you think
of him up? I think of him sleeping in his office, because I think a lot of people went, "Oh no," because there's probably other reasons a previous coach or two was sleeping in their office. But I mean, Matt Rule was like, "Hey, I went home and I just couldn't sleep, so I came back to work."
And honestly, I believed him. When he was like, "I went home, I couldn't sleep, so I went back to the office."
I think he thought it was work. I think he thought it was weird that everybody else found it weird.
Yeah, because it seems like it's one of the things that, as a football coach, like that would be a natural progression of like, well, I can't sleep. What am I going to do?
He's got a recliner in there. I bet she's got a recliner in there.
He's probably got a big leather couch that fits him just fine, and he's probably got a blanket or two in his office, because the man, I've heard Josh and Connor say this a million times this week, and I just love it. The man grinds tape, and he's a tape grinder, so it makes sense that he's just
in his office when he can't sleep, because that's what I think a sane football coach does who lives that close to their office.
Yeah, when we talked about Matt Rule being a builder and enjoying the process, that's what it looks like, putting in that amount of work to where, hey, if you're not attending to your family and your husbandly duties, probably should be in the office getting this team off the ground, making sure they get to 6 wins. And Nebraska's a 6.5-point underdog on Saturday in Bloomington. Matt Rule talked about that, and he said he loves when his team's an underdog, especially when he turns on game day and sees the other team picking against Nebraska. And that tells you, like, you opened up talking about how he opened up his press conference talking about how complimentary he was of Curt Cignetti and how much they've been able to kind of build that program. He's not trying to give anybody anything. Like, he wants all the edge that he possibly can and doesn't want to put anything on a bulletin board that doesn't need to be there.
Oh, yeah. My favorite thing about this is, I can't remember who it was that asked him about it specifically.
Was it me?
It might have been.
Okay. What was the question? I'll tell you.
Matt and Lincoln.
402-951-1620.
Give us a call. He was asking what kind of improvements you've seen from Illinois to Purdue.
Oh, it was Mitch.
It was Mitch? Okay. So Mitch asked him basically like what kind of improvements he's seen, and he basically just said, "That's a better team." I see a team that won't be, specifically he said, as hesitant as they have been in all 4 phases of the game, which I appreciate. And Tony White in his press conference just yesterday kind of
echoed the same thing.
In a sense, he echoed kind of the same thing where he said the defense was a little bit hesitant against Illinois. They were a bit hesitant in that second half against Rutgers.
See, and I think that's the personnel thing we talked about a couple weeks ago, where Illinois was so good at moving personnel into different places that it really caught Nebraska off guard. And take whatever you want away from that Illinois game. I think that's what helped this team more than anything. Okay, we got to be accountable we got to know where all 11 players are lined up and who's in what position. I think that's what's going to benefit them the most going forward throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting, and I know that this was one thing that I think you had bolded out, and that I had bolded out as well when I was listening to Matt Rule, is the 2 false start penalties at Purdue. He was a little bit concerned about that.
Because that crowd on Saturday going to be much more interactive than it was in West Lafayette.
Yeah, fun fact. Indiana actually sells out their football stadium, which is something that I did not know.
Not very regularly, Indiana. But they do it once or twice a year.
They're sold out for us.
Yeah,
and
well,
I have a feeling that beers in Bloomington are going to be pretty cheap.
I think that crowd's going to be 60-40. I don't think it's going to be a massive advantage for Indiana. But with that being said, I mean, it's still a sold-out environment.
I mean, it's still
53,000 people.
It's still home turf.
The one other thing that I like extra bolded and made sure I wanted to talk about was something that Matt Rule said, and I agreed with, but I never really thought about until he said it. And I know I just mentioned Bo Pelini a few minutes ago, and this is going to make the hair on everybody's neck stand up that just got irritated by my comment. But Matt Rule said, I think we're going to look at 8-4 and 9-3 seasons as a great season going forward. And I think I agree with that sentiment. I didn't 5 years ago. I didn't 10 years ago. But now with the way the schedule's working, and we're going to talk about it in a little bit with the listen, I've been saying this for 2 years. It's going to happen. You're going to get an SEC Big Ten crossover game guaranteed every single year. Whether it be in bowl games, whether it be in the regular season, it's probably going to be in both. I don't think it's a matter of if, it's when that happens. The days of playing Western Illinois like Indiana has this year, or UTEP like Nebraska has this year, are going away, and they're going away sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I thought that was something that, I mean, hard copy. We all love it. I bolded that out too because I was like, it's so weird to hear a coach say 8-4, 9-3. That's a good season.
I literally cringed when he said it, and then I went, that could be USC this year, and Lincoln Riley could get fired.
Yeah, and I loved that he put it all out on Front Street. And
it doesn't help that Lincoln Riley is one of the most unlikable people on the planet, but
yeah, he said, the travel, the length that we have to go to get to some of these schools is going to be a bear from now on.
So take that, Paul Feinbaum.
The weather that we have from Oregon to California to Piscataway to the middle of the country in Nebraska, and eventually in Michigan when it gets to be that November and it's 20 degrees and snowing.
If you're lucky.
Yeah, that is true. No one's in the UP, though.
I'll tell you this, though.
The competition has gotten better.
You're gonna appreciate this. I went to the very first Nebraska-Michigan game at the Big House, and it was 31 degrees at kickoff.
Ooh.
And it felt warm. There isn't a whole lot of wind down in the Big House. Like when the wind in Michigan isn't like it is here. And I think
it's not nearly as bad.
And I think that's because of the border and obviously the falls and all that. But it was I thought that was really interesting. One other thing that Matt Rule said that kind of made me go, that's an interesting statement, because we've seen the effort that Matt Rule has put in to get 5-star wide receivers, and obviously Jamal Banks and Isaiah Nair and big-time wide receivers to come to Nebraska. He was talking about the concepts that they ran at Baylor and Temple and what we've seen them run really since he's been in Lincoln, and a little bit more last year than this year, but talking about running 2-back sets and power football. And he was like, we're never going to be top 10 in passing, but we're going to run power, and we're going to run duo, and we're going to run the football. I firmly believe that the head football coach in Lincoln doesn't say anything by mistake. And that comes across to me as, hey, we really need a running back in the transfer portal this year. And yeah, we're going to make sure we go get some big-time weapons for our 5-star freshman quarterback. But if you want to run the football, that's not going away in Lincoln. And for anybody that just may come across this on YouTube and you're a running back and you're looking for somewhere to go here in about 2 months, we could use you.
Yeah, we'd love for you to be here. Go 100%. Big Red. And
hashtag GBR.
I do like the fact that earlier on in his press conference, when he was asked about the recruiting and the transfer portal and kind of how all that is working now, he's like, we've done the right things. He's like, it's
hard to argue too.
Look at Banks, look at Naor. We also recruit really well. But he never makes a mistake in the fact that he says, you know what else we got to do? We got to win.
Yeah.
Because when you win, you recruit well. And when you recruit well, you win. Oh, it goes hand in hand. And it always amazes me how well he's able to put his finger on the pulse, because that running the ball comment, number one, it is to get a recruit in here. But number two, I feel like it is service for the fans.
Oh, do people in Nebraska like to run the football?
I don't know if he can hear the rumblings along the ground, like putting his ear down to the floor of Memorial Stadium and saying,
he knows that the run game hasn't
run the ball.
They know that the run game hasn't been good either. And I've been saying it for 13 months now. I think this has been you got to have it year for EJ Barthel, and it hasn't been.
Not yet.
And I don't know if that's a matter of, listen, Dante Dowdell, I think we can all agree, has probably been the best running back so far, right? So they went outside of the program. And
no argument.
Yeah, well, I think you can make the argument for Emmett Johnson to some degree, but I think you can make the argument, okay, this is me being EJ Barthel. Okay, we went out and got a running back that hasn't been here before. I was able to take somebody that's not used to the system, and they've been the best player. You can make that argument. I really think it's going to be a struggle for him to be able to recruit running backs to Nebraska with what you've been able to put on the field for 2 years. And that's where Matt Rule's got to make a decision. Okay, are we going to, do I stick with my guy? Because he clearly likes EJ Barthel.
Yeah.
And
that's very obvious.
But that's going to be like what this running back recruiting class looks like may be equally as important as what it's looked like on the field for EJ Barthel to be here next year.
Have you seen the running backs they have coming in though?
Yeah,
the stats they're putting
Cole
up.
Ballard's a dude. Like, yeah, they have a really good class coming in, and that's why I said that. It was the one negative, the one positive, because the one positive you have, or not the one positive, but one of the positives you have, is you've got some really talented guys that are coming here to play at Nebraska to play for that coach, and that's why I make that statement where there's going to be some decision making. Speaking of decision makings, Nebraska's handed out 2 additional black shirts. They gave one to Sierra Wright. Couldn't agree more. I think he's absolutely deserved. Plus, he's technically a starter right now. Mm-hmm. The other one went to Brian Buschini, and that was by player. That was by player request.
I'm not booing him.
That was a boom.
It's the Buschini.
Yeah.
Come on, Dan.
I was just making sure that we didn't have to kick our producer out right away.
No. This was super cool, right?
Because I can produce and do this show from the other side of the board.
We've seen him do it.
No, I love it.
Yeah.
Especially when, again,
dude's out there throwing tackles.
I heard about it during Tony White's press conference, and he was like, I saw Buschini kick it, and he had a little extra pep in his step.
They made 2 tackles too.
To be fair, that's what you want out of your, punter, is someone who is really the defense's best friend right now.
Yeah, and Ed Foley's been getting killed this year because of special teams, as far as either blocking kicks, or getting kicks blocked, or missing field goals. But like, it's really hard to give him all the flack that he's received, and some of it warranted, and not look at the progression and the development of Brian Buschini this season and say, okay, he's not doing something right. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, you get 1 blocked punt, and then it's time to throw Ed Foley underneath the bus.
There was 3, but who's counting?
I am not counting, apparently. But yeah, with everything that we've seen out of Buschini this year and the way that he's been able to punt the football and the situation that he's been able to get his defense in seemingly at will, I mean, hats off to him. Hats off to Ed Foley. The black shirt is well-deserved, as he is he's everyone's best friend right now.
I think more than anything we just talked about, the grit that he played with against Rutgers and going out and having what looked like could be a game-ending back injury. I mean, he was laboring pretty hard around after he got the first punt blocked. And being able to go out there and grit it out, completed a pass on a key 4th down and made a couple of tackles after that and got hit a couple more times after that as well, and be able to finish that game out, which it looked like he was in a tremendous amount of pain. That's probably the one guy that's the happiest about the bye week this week.
Oh, yeah. He definitely was spending 14 straight days at the training table saying, I need that work.
Yeah, give me as many ice tubs as you possibly can. We're going to pivot. I think I'm going to. We're going to pivot on the Who Wants to Smoke segment. Omaha Benson has forfeited their football season. Dan and I are going to talk about that. The options the NSAA are going to face going forward and a whole lot more. If you missed the opening segment tonight, check it out at soundcloud.com/after-hours1620. It was brought to you by our friend Amber Best with Berkshire Hathaway Real Estate. If you're looking for your forever home, look no further than amberbest.com. Live updates on what's going on in the market, houses that are available in the Omaha area. There's not a ton of them. And yes, she can represent you and sell your home as well. Work with the best by heading over to Amber Best. That's BESS.com tonight. We'll be right back giving you the smoke here on 1620 Zone. Hey, everybody, it's Jimmy Allen here for Jerry Ryan Clothing and Sportswear. You know what? We're just a few weeks away from basketball season, and Jerry Ryan has the best in all things Creighton gear. If you want to stop by, get yourself a Johnny O polo or Peter Millar quarter zip. They have it all in blue, red, gray. They've got it all. They've got Nebraska polos. They've got Creighton polos. You can be ready for basketball and football season all in a one-stop shop at 78th and Dodge. Stop by, tell Dan and John the crew that After Hours sent you. It's Jerry Ryan. They've been dressing Omaha for 51 consecutive years.
Your Omaha area forecast, presented by Bellevue Berry and Pumpkin Ranch, from the KETV Newswatch 7 Weather Center on 1620 The Zone.
You can get a great craft beer pretty much anywhere these days. But what about the whole package, dining out, service, and atmosphere? Come to Cunningham's Pub and Grill, home of Omaha's original smoked wings, now with 2 locations. We're bringing back Sundays at our Old Mill location this fall, where you can catch all the sports while enjoying quality food and drinks. Find your flavor and follow us online for unique daily specials and fun craft beer events. Cunningham's Pub and Grill in Old Mill and now Blackstone.
The leaves are on the ground and the footballs are in the air. That means it's time for a fall tune-up. Locally owned and operated with 18-month same-as-cash financing available, Controlled Comfort is your one-stop shop for all your HVAC needs. With over 350 5-star Google reviews, Controlled Comfort is the cream of the crop. Head over to ControlledComfort.com for all your HVAC needs today.
Controlled Comfort keeps it under control.
You are listening to After Hours with Jimmy Allen on 1620 The Zone.
624 on a Wing Wednesday edition of the After Hours Lounge, brought to you by Bellevue University. If you haven't made it down to the Gordon Lozier Athletic Center for whether it be Trish Sedlick's volleyball team or Lucas Gabriel's men's basketball team, or even Dave Denley's women's basketball team that's going to have a ton of local flavor on it this year, get down to Bellevue University and catch a game this winter. It's time for the Who Wants to Smoke segment, and it's the Omaha Benson Bunnies, because they are going to have to forfeit their last 2 games of their season. I know this is kind of near and dear to your heart, Dan, not necessarily the Benson portion of it, but you faced something similar in high school when you were at Mount Michael.
Yeah, I mean, and again, all my Mount Michael Knights out there who are listening right now, if you are listening, do not come down heavily.
5011 Capitol Avenue.
But yes, meet me outside in the parking lot after the show. I'll be there. And I'll be cowering in fear. But, you know, when you have such a small school and small numbers participating in a sport,
yeah,
you do tend to, some people get to that mindset at the end of the season where it's like, what is the point? We are just getting absolutely blown out.
See, and
we're having trouble, you know, keeping up with the competition that we're against. And
I don't necessarily know if that was the conversation. And I'm not, that's obviously your experience.
It's not the conversation that Benson had.
I don't think
whatsoever.
that's the conversation Benson was having, but it's one of those things that, and I know we talked about this when we brought up the Millard South Lincoln High thing. And I don't think anybody would mind me mentioning this. I went back and counted, and 34 different head coaches of different sports throughout the Omaha metro area got wind of our conversation about that, and were very positive. And a few of them even commented on our SoundCloud page about it. And we're almost in complete agreement with what John and I were saying, and you chimed in and agreed as well, is I think there needs to be a serious discussion. Listen, it's happening at the college level. So there's got to be some kind of trickle-down effect about not classifying by school, but classifying by sport. Because let's use tennis as an example. Let's say that at a school like Westview, where you have a very high enrollment rate, how many of those kids are actually interested in tennis? And I honestly don't know that answer. And if you have a lower enrollment into the sport, that should matter more than the enrollment at your school, in my opinion. I think, yes, there are always going to be players or athletes that join the sport late. But I think usually before the start of preseason workouts for that sport, you have a really good idea what your numbers are going to look like. And to me, that should be more important on classification than the enrollment at a school, because it's different for almost every sport at every single institution in the city and the state. And I know that, listen, Coach, as somebody that does play-by-play, it's not always the most reliable to rely on coaches to give you data and information.
Yeah.
Check Max Preps as an example. But I really think that it would benefit everybody as a whole, and I'm talking football, baseball, soccer, what have you, if we started looking at the numbers of the participants of the sport rather than at the school. Yes, the schools with the biggest enrollment are going to have the advantages. They already have that, though. So why punish the school with a large enrollment rate if the sport doesn't replicate that?
It's fair. It just, I guess I don't have a good argument.
The powers that be have to be somewhat in agreement with that anyway, because if you're willing to let a school reclassify but not let them play in a postseason, then there's already somewhat of an admission that there's already a problem there.
Yeah.
And I get the reasons to not allow a school to compete at a quote lesser level. I think the Bennington Badgers would have some conversations with people in Class A about that. But and that's something we could talk about too, because I think this discussion is so much based around what happened to Lincoln High, what's happening at Benson, and what's happened at a couple other schools. I know it happened at Northwest one year, and it's happened at Omaha Bryan in a couple sports as well. That you have to wonder, like, would the people at Bennington and Scott and I'm talking football here for this argument's sake, be interested in making that jump up if they could? And I think a lot of them would. And I mean, we just saw Elkhorn North run off 4 straight Class B state championships in girls basketball, right? I think Ann Prince and Britt Prince and that group of girls would absolutely love to make the jump up to Class A and had that opportunity. And
they wouldn't have said boo about it.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And listen, Renee Saunders is a staple for the last 5 years on this program.
Who?
When there's state volleyball coming around for a reason. And I think it's a discussion in both directions. And I think it's for a betterment of everything to look at this from a 10,000-foot view and not say, this is the way we've always done it. I'll get to my text messages in a minute, coaches. This is the way it's always been done. And we got to start looking at what's not only better for the product on the field, but the athlete that's participating in the sport as well. I know this kind of sounds like participation trophy speech, and we've in my day we played the toughest schedules and blah blah blah. If it's going to kill a program, and I think that's a discussion we're getting close to having here. If it's at a detriment that you're going to stop seeing students go out for the program, and we're going to see a school, and this isn't about Benson, this is just in general, lose a complete program because there's no interest because of the results on Friday or Tuesday or Wednesday night, then I think this is a discussion that needs to be had.
Yeah, and that's sort of, and John Landstrom, give me a call right now if
but go ahead.
John Von Dolan.
Oh, okay.
Different guy. Yep. Different guy.
All right.
If you're listening right now and I'm completely out of line or completely wrong, let me know.
But 429511620.
I think that is the exact conversation that probably had to happen at Mount Michael.
Yeah.
At some point, is to say, we're going up against the Benningtons and we're getting walloped. And there's no real end in sight. If we reclassify down to Class C, we'll have a better chance against more equal opponents. And because you do end up seeing you're required to participate freshman year.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't want to choose football. Maybe you do choose football. You see what happens on the varsity side of things. And as a sophomore, junior, when you have to step up and make that jump up to JV varsity, you say, I don't really want to get walloped.
Yeah.
Every Friday.
And I don't even think that's necessarily the conversation. Like, to me, there's also the conversation of safety too, because
yes,
anybody that's ever been on a football field, whether it be coaching, whether it be playing, or whatever it is, if you see somebody that doesn't know what they're doing, going up against somebody that does know what they're doing, it often looks painful. That's because it is. Like, when you see somebody that doesn't know how to tackle, try to tackle somebody that knows how to get behind their pads and run, it's a very unsafe environment. Like, there's a reason that when you're a coach, you have a meeting before the season, and you go over the safety of putting your head in the right position and going through.
Yep.
You know why? Because it's not ballet. And I know people say it all the time. It's dangerous. You can get hurt. And I think that's the conversation we're having here.
Yeah, and let's be fair. If you're out there and you're unmatched and unskilled compared to your opponent, you're going to get hurt.
Yeah, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Yeah, and that's what I think is scarier. And I mean, it feels really bad that you have to cancel the last 2 games of your season if you are a Benson or, a team of that ilk. But
yeah, nobody.
If it's what you have to do to sustain the life of your program past a single year, then that's what you have to do.
I want to talk about Bobby Massey and the Benson girls basketball team that was in here 2 years ago, because I think I think a lot of people are piling on Benson in this situation.
And they had a girls basketball team 2 years ago that had 5 players.
Yep.
Not 5 starters, 5 players. And one of the players tore their ACL. And they played the last 3 games with 4 players on the court. And for anybody that's pointing at and saying, oh, they know they're not going to win, so they don't want to finish it out. That's not the case at all. Like, that's not what we're talking about here. And congratulations to Coach Massey. He's going to be in next week. They've got 17 girls out this year, and it's a matter of showing these players that there's a way to build this program. And when you have the lack of experience that you have at Benson this year, doing it against the competition they've had to face isn't helping anybody. And it's not going to help the longevity of that program. And that's something that I think needs to be continuously taken into consideration every year at every school in every program. And I think that's the level we need to get to. If we're going to treat high school sports the way we're treating it now, as important as it is on the docket for most schools, and when Westside's selling out every single game, and you're seeing tens of thousands of dollars be invested into turfs and video boards, then it's time to take it as serious as we're treating it as a business venture. Yeah. I'm not saying NIL and treat it like you're treating college football right now.
No.
But you've got to make it, you've got to keep it as true as it can be to high school athletics and keep the safety of the players in mind too.
Yeah, but I do think, the point you made earlier about Renee Saunders and her Scott volleyball program.
They're good.
It's probably the most apt point that you can make about a single team in the Omaha metro area where Coach Saunders goes out and plays tournaments early in
the season against national level competition because she knows that that's what her girls need to succeed down the line.
And I think it's very important to point out everybody else can do that as well.
Yes.
Just throwing that out there.
Everybody can do it. Not everyone does do it. But if someone were to probably walk into Coach Saunders' office and say, hey, what do you think about going up to Class A next season? I'm sure she would talk it over with her staff, with the school, and with the girls and say, can we go to Class A?
Yeah.
And it would be a resounding, yep, we can do it. We're good enough.
It's going to be interesting to see what comes of all this, because I think there's enough now that the NSA has to take a look at this. Mm-hmm. And it's not just about football. And I'd be surprised if there weren't a few coaches that brings it to their attention as well. We're going to bring your attention the really good football games that are going on this weekend. We come back, we're going to tell you which games we will, won't, and should be watching Saturday and Sunday in the NFL and college football. We come back. If you missed the Who Wants to Smoke segment, it was brought to you by our friends at Controlled Comfort Heating and Air. It's fall. That means you need to get the maintenance done on your HVAC unit so you can be prepared and not freezing this winter. Head over to ControlledComfort.com, set up a maintenance appointment, and have peace of mind about your furnace this winter. They're also going to make sure your AC unit didn't take too much of a beating this spring and summer as well. Head over to ControlledComfort.com. Set up an appointment tonight. We'll be right back with Will, Won't, Should. And listen to the break here on 1620 Zone. Hey, everybody, it's Jimmy Allen here for Bob Williams with Williams Law. Bob's going to be in on Friday, and he's going to be talking to us about the legal litigation facing college athletes, major conferences, the NFL. You don't have to be in big business like that to work with a lawyer of the caliber of Bob Williams with Williams Law. All you have to do is head over to WilliamsLawLLC.com, book a free, no obligation legal consultation with Bob and his team. They're going to walk you through whatever litigation you're facing, whether it be civil, whether it be a legal issue that's facing maybe jail time. Bob and his team can walk you through all of that and help you understand your rights and explain the process. Again, Williams Law LLC for criminal or civil litigation. They can help you with both. WilliamsLawLLC.com. Book a free, no obligation legal consultation tonight.
When you shop local, you help strengthen our community. So if you need roof repair, gutters, siding, even windows, call local Pyramid Contractors. They're the #1 roofer in Omaha for more than a dozen years. Let Pyramid Contractors come and give you a free estimate. Give them a call at 402-502-9300. That's 402-502-9300. Or visit them online at PyramidRoof.com. Never settle for less.
.640 on a Wing Wednesday edition of the After Hours Lounge, brought to you by Bellevue University. Download the BU Bruins app to your smartphone tonight. You can keep up to date on all things Bellevue Athletics. I want to get to a couple of unnamed listeners who were tweeting in, texting in during that last break. And
Secret listeners.
I do think this is important to point out. And we were just talking about reclassification in high school sports and what it should look like. I don't know if the OPS schools have necessarily recovered from the pandemic year yet. I think that's going to take almost another entire cycle of students, like freshmen through seniors, and that's an 8-year process before they ever really truly recover from that. From the OPS standpoint, like we were just talking, it's not just OPS, it's not just Omaha Benson, it's not just Lincoln High, and it's not just football, but there's a couple of sports that desperately need that help in reclassification, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting. When I was reading the WWT article earlier today about it, Nate Newhouse, and I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. That is how you
pronounce his last name.
Woohoo! I did it. I didn't pull a Jimmy. I pronounced the last name. He pointed out very quickly and very specifically, it is very important for us to remember that there are transfer rules in place.
Yeah.
And those might be a problem. Which
Well,
I can see the look on your face, Jimmy.
I disagree with that wholeheartedly.
That is already such a rabbit hole to go down that I really, really don't want to go down it tonight. And I'm perfectly fine if we don't. Because that's a huge problem.
I'll just say this. And I truly believe this. And I say this a lot and I get a lot of flack for it, but I think it's the truth. If a kid could choose to go somewhere because they want to major in theater when they get to college, and a high school has a better theater program than one in their neighborhood, then the kid that wants to play wide receiver should have the opportunity to go to a high school where he feels like he can be better coached because that's what he wants to do with his life. I believe that. I do. And you can say what you want about mailboxes in random neighborhoods back in the day, or paychecks going to places maybe they shouldn't, or whatever you want. But I think for a kid, for somebody that is 14 to 18 years old, to have enough clarification in their mind that there's something that they want to do with their life when they leave high school, to have a goal to graduate high school and do something after that. I don't care what it is. If it's going to give them a better opportunity to do that, I think they should have that opportunity.
Have you seen the new changes that are being proposed too?
Yeah, and that was going to happen sooner rather than later because the latter part of what I just said, the former part of what I just said. Let's get to will, won't, should, though. These are the games we will, won't, and should be watching this weekend in college and pro football. And I'm going to start us off. For the will, I think everybody should be watching this game. Georgia at Texas. K Ford was talking on USC earlier. He said that he felt like Texas should be a 10.5 point favorite. This game is in Austin. Dan, you could attest to this. The listeners of the After Hours Lounge, you could attest to this. I have been off the Georgia bandwagon for a long time. I did not think Carson Beck should have been the preseason Heisman. I said I thought they were going to lose 3 games before the start of the year. This was one of them. I think Texas absolutely rolls on Saturday. I'll be watching this, so I can tell you I told you so on Tuesday, but the football is going to be really good for at least 3 quarters.
Yeah, not wrong about that one, Jimmy. My will is another SEC game. I'll probably be attempting as hard as I possibly can to be watching Alabama, Tennessee. Again, it's another one. I think it's going to be one of those decided
games.
This game
feels really important.
Especially for these guys, with both having one loss right now, and at one point in time being, in our minds, probably, one of them was at least a clear favorite to be the SEC and possible national champion at the end of the year.
Tennessee, yeah.
And the other one was Alabama.
Yeah.
The team that is always good no matter what.
John Schreiner not here tonight, but with us in spirit. And this is the game he'll be watching too. He feels like this will determine who will be the second best team in the SEC, to my point, after Texas smacks Georgia. But I think it's even more important if Georgia wins that game. Because if Georgia beats Texas and then Alabama beat Georgia, and if Tennessee beats Alabama, you've got a really big log jam. And listen, I think Texas wins, but it's college football. It's still Kirby Smart, and it's still the Georgia Bulldogs. So this is the first time in, I believe, 5 years that it's Georgia facing a non-Alabama team in the SEC is an underdog. And if they're able to overcome that Texas team, listen, Quinn Ewers looked really, really rusty, and he figured it out by the end of the game. But Georgia's not Oklahoma, so
they are not.
If he's still got a little bit of rust on the wheels, I'm not saying that Georgia can't win that football game. I just think Texas is the better team.
All right, then, real quick, early buy or sell question. Buy or sell, does Kirby Smart push Quinn Ewers this weekend?
He's going to take him out of the knees if he gets the chance. Brody, you got a game you're going to be watching this weekend?
There's a lot of good NFL games this weekend. And honestly, some of Dan's favorite division is going to be playing each other, the Lions-Vikings. I think that game is going to be big and have a lot of implications for that division. So
I think Detroit wins that game.
I think they do as well.
What game I won't be watching this weekend, and there's a little bit of a trend here if you've been listening to the After Hours Lounge for a while. I'm not watching the Raiders at all this year. They are terrible. But here's the thing. 3 straight weeks in the over-under. They've taken the under, but I think Vegas is finally starting to pay attention to this. 34.5 has been the number for 3 consecutive weeks. This week, 43.5 in the Raiders-Rams game. I'm still going under.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Cooper Kupp's back.
Allegedly, Cooper Kupp is back.
He should be.
I doubt he'll be back. I doubt we'll actually even get to see him play.
Here's the thing about trends in Vegas, though. They start to pay attention. They're raising that number for a reason. 3 straight overs. That under's coming in. I think it's a lock, even with Cooper Kupp out there.
That's fair enough. And you know what? My won't specifically is Brody's will.
Oh,
Because
what?
I will not be
Oh,
watching
damn.
Lions Vikings.
You don't want to watch good football?
Yes, I
Okay.
realize that it is on at the same exact time
That's a bad
as
take.
my Packers will be playing the
This is
Texans.
a bad take.
But I have no reason. I have no reason to watch 2 of the best teams in the division of football that I care the most about play each other. Because what am I going to do? Sit in front of the TV and just be sad on Sunday?
Yeah.
I mean, I want to be moderately happy and
Good
at least
point.
cheer on my Green Bay Packers. I don't want to have to go, all right, who are we going to have to beat for the North this year? Who's going to be the better team? Because it's obvious that it's Detroit in my mind. Even without Aiden Hutchinson, that Detroit defense is just still a room full of
Yeah, we haven't
monsters.
talked about that yet either, man. That knee injury looked
Oh.
really, really bad.
Fib. And they were saying it's just a fracture.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you right now, no, it's not.
It's a fracture of every ligament in his knee is what it was.
He fully snapped both his tibia and his fibia, and they're saying 6 to 8 months. Nope.
I mean,
Nope.
that's
I
kind
mean-
of typical for a leg break now.
Yeah.
NFL wise, I'm sure that they've got, the witch doctors and everything that can get him up to speed as
All the
fast as
ayahuasca,
possible.
man, goodbye.
But boy, I'll tell you, I had one of my best friends the first time I met him. He was 2 weeks out from crushing his tibia and fibia on the snowboarding accident.
Probably doesn't
He-
have an NFL doctor, though.
He didn't have an NFL
Throwing that
doctor,
out
but
there.
he did have plates in his leg for over a year and a half. So
Brody, what game won't you be watching this weekend?
Just had it up. Oh, there we go. Jets Steelers Sunday Night Football. The game before that,
Why is this game on Sunday Night
Wha-
Football?
like,
NFL,
why?
flex it out.
Russell Wilson's also possibly going to be back.
He's playing.
don't bring Russell Wilson
I'm
back.
sorry.
Don't
but
let Russ cook.
no. And the game before that, which is Jimmy's should
Mhm.
be Sunday Night Football.
The game that should everybody should be watching, I agree, Brody, should be the main event in all of football this weekend. And it's Chiefs 49ers. It's a rematch of the Super Bowl. More importantly, this is a must-win game for the 49ers. It is very, very difficult to get to the playoffs at 3 and 4. And if you fall to 2-2 at home, that crowd may kind of go away on you a little bit. Listen, Christian McCaffrey, I'm going to go on a limb here. Christian McCaffrey's not going to play again this season. So you got to stop holding on to hope of that. And that run game showed you that there's enough dynamic playmakers in that backfield. It doesn't really matter who it is in Kyle Shanahan's system. As long as they're athletic and can run the football, they're going to be able to get the job done for you. Now, listen, Kansas City's defense is much better than Seattle. So that's going to be a real testament.
True.
Chris Jones and those guys up front for the 49ers this week. But it's not like, yes, Kansas City is absolutely 5-0. It has not been sunshine and rainbows for Patrick Mahomes this season. Now he's going up against Fred Warner and that defense, and Nick Bosa's healthy. And you kind of got to have it if you're the Chiefs here, too, to feel good about going forward for the rest of the season.
Yeah, that'll be
Niners 1.5 point favorites, by the way.
Real?
Yeah.
Wow.
Really? Okay. Well, see, even more intriguing matchup than I thought it could possibly be. The game that we should all be watching this weekend is everything that's nice
Oh my God.
over it. Jack Trice.
Okay. All right. I thought you were going to go with the Packers, but okay.
No,
I can
no,
agree.
no.
I can agree with this sentiment.
That is my will. That is my won't. And that is my should every single week.
Yeah. Listen,
But
do you know that Iowa State is a 14-point favorite in that game?
Ooh.
wow.
That's a lot. Yes,
They are an undefeated number 9.
They are the number 9 team in the country.
right now. Playing against a 3-3
U-
UCF squad.
UCF is
but-
coming up to Iowa State. 14 points, though, man, that feels like a ton.
I mean, it is a ton, but
That is.
you can poo-poo on me for not wanting to watch good football on Sunday. I should be watching good football on Saturday if I click over to this Iowa State game.
Iowa State covers in that game. Gus Malzahn's seat might be getting a little warm.
I thought it was warm already with his 3-3 start, to be
Yeah.
honest.
And it's been pretty ugly, too.
They have not looked all that impressive.
That
so far
Cincinnati
this year.
game last week was brutal.
Rough.
And they probably should have beat Florida, too. What game should everybody be watching this weekend?
I'm going a little off script. It's not football. It's baseball.
Oh, okay.
Uh-oh.
NLCS, ALCS. It's interesting. Honestly, The matchups that are possible.
When is Shohei Ohtani up to bat?
Hold on. We're going to get to all that and by ourselves. So we'll save it for that. If you missed Will Won't Should Tonight, check it out at soundcloud.com/afterhours1620 because it's a Wing Wednesday. And it was brought to you by Cunningham's Pub. All you got to do is head over to our Facebook page or our Twitter page, After Hours 1620. Retweet or share the GIF of the wings we shared tonight. We're going to enter you in a drawing to win a $25 gift card to either of the Cunningham's location, whether it be the Blackstone District or Old Mill Road. We'll get you in the game tonight. Head over to After Hours 1620 on Twitter. Retweet the gift of the wings, and we will enter you into that drawing. We'll be right back. Finding out what's trending on social media on 1620 Zone. Hey, everybody, it's Jimmy Allen here for Forsman's Finest Decks. Listen, fall is booked up for the team at Forsman. That's right. They're so busy right now. They're building the best decks all over Omaha. But you can get in line for the 2025 season. If you want to spend all spring and summer outdoor on your patio, but you don't have one yet, let Forsman's Finest Decks come build you a deck, put a cover on it, add that something that your house has been missing. Head over to forsmansfinest.com and have your dream deck built in 2025. 6:56 on a Wing Wednesday edition of the After Hours Lounge, brought to you by Bellevue University. If you haven't had a chance to make it down to the Gordon Lozier Athletic Center, check out Dave Denley's women's basketball or Lucas Gabriel's men's basketball team. Check them out this winter at Bellevue University. It's time for the social media soundbite. Speaking of universities, they got to find a way to make money. USC thought they found a unique way. Penn State fan felt differently. That was a lot louder than I thought it was going to be. So, Dan, have you heard about this? USC is allowing fans to pay anywhere between $1,450 or $1,800, depending on the game, to run out of the tunnel with it. The problem is, this feels like a pretty big problem. There's no rules associated with this. You just got to go down there and run out with him after paying your fee. So a Penn State fan took it upon him to do this, pay the fee, go out to USC, and run out with the USC team ahead of Penn State, wearing all Penn State gear. Are you here for the pettiness?
Yes, I am. This is exactly what I like about sports in general, is the ability to be petty and at the same time to be petty in the stupidest way possible.
For a lot of money.
You could not convince me to pay $1,800 to the University of Southern California to run out of the tunnel with the team and just be in someone else's colors.
This feels like, well, he wore his Penn State gear. That's why this is funny.
That's what I'm referring to, is running out of an opposing team's tunnel in my own colors. I'd be like, why? I'm not paying $1,800 to do it.
Do we know what's going on in the YouTube chat, by the way? Somebody's saying that the chat is really...
It got resolved.
It's fixed. Okay. Good job, Brody. Never doubted you. Does it surprise you that the University of Nebraska is not like Tunnel Walk's pretty sacred? Maybe they're saving that as like last-ditch effort, dip it into the reserves to make sure we... But listen, the recruits that come in on baseball visits, the recruits that come in for all visits, I mean, most sports get to go out and be on the field for the Tunnel Walk. Not necessarily run out of the field. But if you're allowing guys like Bud Crawford to come in and do it, might as well sell your soul a little bit, right?
No.
Okay.
I am going to stand firm on this fact. We should not ever let anyone who is not invited directly by Coach Rule, the athletic department, or the football staff in general to be a part of the Tunnel Walk. It is sacred, like you just said, and it feels like it would be a hollow gesture to allow someone else to do it. When you allow a person like Terrence Crawford to lead the team out of the tunnel, that is an honor. And if you watched the Chasing 3 that involved those interactions where he was like, you're going to lead us out of the tunnel.
Well,
Bud Crawford is an adult man, and his face lit up like a little kid and was like, I am so excited.
I'm kind of okay with it, because if you watch the USC video, the fans are clearly held back a little bit after the team actually runs out on the tunnel. And that's why I'm like, all right, now, what do you think the dollar amount would be to lead the team? Nevin Shapiro style, back at the U, like what?
10 grand.
Oh, way north.
Really?
Yeah, you're probably looking at 7 figures to lead the team out of the tunnel, to be the guy at the front of the gate. Yeah, you're probably looking at $1 million.
I don't know. Didn't Matthew McConaughey lead Texas out of the tunnel?
You don't think he paid for that?
I mean, he was a teacher at the time, so
yeah, he probably donated a little bit of cashola to get that privilege to do that. Poll question up at After Hours 1620: should Nebraska sell the ability to run out of the tunnel during the Tunnel Walk? Yes or no? Get your votes in at After Hours 1620. Don't forget it's a Wing Wednesday as well. We're going to buy or sell on several topics, including, like Brody was just discussing, the AL and NLCS situations and some rules changing in the NCAA and a whole lot more. It's the After Hours Lounge rolls on. If you missed the social media soundbite tonight, check it out at soundcloud.com/After Hours 1620, wherever you may find your podcast at. It was brought to you by Pixel Fire Marketing. If your business needs help with social media marketing, website design, or online advertising, pixelfiremarketing.com is here to help. Their social media experts will ignite your social media presence, entice your ideal client, and engage your brand online. Check out pixelfiremarketing.com for more details tonight. We'll be right back. Buying or selling the other side of the break here on 1620 The Zone. Hey, everybody, it's Jimmy Allen here for AX Plumbing. Home or residential, they can do it all, from backflow prevention issues to water heaters, even plumbing basic problems. They can fix it all. Nick and his team can fix your house or your business day, and they're going to leave it cleaner than they found it. Check out axpservice.com for more details tonight. Top of the second hour here on 1620 The Zone, brought to you by Pyramid Contractors, windows, gutters, siding, even the roof. They could do it all. Check out pyramidroof.com to book a free estimate tonight. It's time for buy or sell. Brody Heideman's got some rules changes.
Ooh, we got a lot.
What do you got for us?
The NCAA has had enough of Dan Lanning shenanigans. In a release Wednesday, the NCAA issued a new rules interpretation on how to handle a penalty for 12 players on the field in the final 2 minutes of either half. If the defense has 12 players actively participate in the down, the offense can choose, along with the 5-yard penalty, to have the game clock reset to the time that had been displayed at the snap. Buy or sell, this was the right decision to be made.
Sell, because this should have been the first decision made. It makes sense not to go back to the original plan or original ruling where if there's 12 men on the field, they would just whistle it dead at the snap. Because, yes, there is a possibility you could score a touchdown or advance the football. Obviously, famously more difficult to do against 12 players rather than 11, but I still like the ability that they're giving the offense at least a chance.
And see, I'll buy that it's the right decision to make at the right time, only because Dan Lanning exposed you and basically proved that everything, that he's a smart guy, that he made the right decision, and that everyone else can go and do whatever they want to themselves. But I sell on the fact, like you said, Jimmy, this should have been the rule from the beginning. But shout out to Dan Lanning, making change happen.
He is a smart guy.
Yeah, he's very intelligent.
I also still am sticking to the fact I don't think that was on purpose. Dan Lanning's
Agree
not that smart.
to disagree there.
Guys, we are just 20 days away from Creighton's home opener.
2-0, baby.
Woo!
A lot of young talent, a lot of young and exciting young talent. Buy or sell that it's Sweet 16 time or bust for the Jays this season?
I think it's absolutely Sweet 16 or bust. And I think that's the expectations that Greg McDermott and that staff want to have. You can say what you want about losing talent. Listen, there isn't going to be anybody that's going to fit the role of Baylor Scheierman this year and what he was able to do from a rebound standpoint. I don't necessarily know if that means you absolutely take a step back because they're going to have a lot of different utility guys that do a lot of different things. And the tournament's such a weird enigma. All you got to do is really get in. You got a chance of advancing and getting as far as the Sweet 16. And this team this year is talented enough to do that. And I think they do it again.
Yeah, I buy as well, Jimmy. I was going up and down their roster just the other night, and I was saying, all right, I'm a little bit sad we don't have Baylor Scheierman for another year, but holy mackerel. We got some dudes this year, and I think Sweet 16 is not a far-fetched expectation to put on this year's team.
I'm really excited to see what Pop Isaacs can do in this offense.
He looks really good.
We've heard some good stuff about the old Pop.
I think he'd technically be the young Pop. I think his dad's name is Pop.
Is his dad's name Pop too?
Yeah.
We are also just 19 days away from Big Red tipping off as well. Fred and the boys made the dance last season. Buy or sell that it's NCAA tournament time or bust for the Nebraska basketball Huskers.
This is we're going to be called the Nebraska ball hater. I don't think that's a tournament team this year. I think they've got a lot more question. Not getting Rink Mass back this year from a health standpoint, obviously he's going to be on the team and redshirting is a huge deal. I mean, he was really the reason that love you some Keisei Tominaga. Rink Mass was the reason they made the tournament last year. And I don't see it this year for Fred Hoiberg and the team. I don't think that means he gets fired or that they have necessarily like a losing season. I just don't think it's an NCAA tournament style season.
And I buy it as well because I do actually think that, unfortunately for Fred Hoiberg, that is now the situation that he has put himself in.
I think that's fortunate. You think that's unfortunate? I think that's a fortunate thing.
I think it's unfortunate for all the stuff that you just said. When it's probably not going to be a tournament team this year, but now Nebraska faithful expects it to be a tournament team come March.
I think he bought himself some time, actually. We're in complete disagreement about that.
Yeah, I don't think he bought himself some time. I think he's got higher expectations and higher level of need to win at this point. I'm a little bit worried for Fred Hoiberg and his job.
Brody?
I don't know.
Great take.
I honestly don't know. This season has a lot on the line for the Huskers. I feel like coming off of last season, but what have the standards been?
It's a great question. Not very high.
Yes. Jeff Sims. Yes, that Jeff Sims from the Amigos ads. is set to start for your Arizona State Sun Devils this weekend after starter Sam Levitt suffered a rib injury last week. The line was Cincinnati
-3.
-3. It has jumped to Bearcats -6. We all know how much I like to gamble.
Wow, Brody.
Buy or sell
things live on the air, huh?
Buy or sell that the smart money should go on the Bearcats.
Well, Brody, you're not old enough to gamble, so I hope that's not true. Secondly, yeah, I think the smart money should go on the Bearcats because I got Jeff Sims at least putting the ball on the turf or throwing an interception a minimum of 2 times on Saturday.
Yeah, I would buy smart money. Bet those Bearcats, folks.
100%.
You can buy up some lines. That's the only way it's going to be this weekend.
Ron Burgundy, Brody Heidemann, what else you got for us?
The Yankees.
Yeah.
Lead the ALCS 2-0. The Mets tied the series with the Dodgers 1-1. Buy or sell, we will get to see a Subway Series in the World Series.
I've been adamant all year long that it is going to be Yankees, Dodgers in the World Series.
Yes.
I'm backpedaling. I think the Mets are going to win it. I think they're going to win tonight. It's top of the first right now, 2 outs with Freddie Freeman at the plate, and he struck out. Or no, sorry, that's strike 2. I think the Mets win tonight. I think they win the series. I think the Yankees win it in 5. I think it's Mets Yankees in the World Series, just like everybody predicted at the beginning of the season, right?
Yep.
Yay!
Nobody saw this coming.
Fun fact:
Damn.
Are the Mets going to be America's team in the World Series?
No.
What? Like
this is okay. I'm gonna allow me.
I know they have the highest
out,
payroll in
to
baseball.
take out the
I know
box
that
real fast and just say this is a push. You should be neither buying nor selling on any of this because let me tell you, we will all be worse for wear at the end of this baseball season. Because congratulations, yes, the Yankees are going to be in the World Series. That is a given. The Cleveland Guardians are not the team that can stand up against New York's finest. But also, whoever wins this NLCS right now does not matter. Because it's going to make for the most annoying World Series that we have ever had in our entire lifetimes. Who gives a rip about the Mets and who gives a rip about the Dodgers? Congratulations.
A lot
you
of
both
people.
have played your ways into having
They're
two
literally
of the
top
highest
5 revenue in all
payrolls
of Major League Baseball.
in baseball. It is going to be so annoying to have all of the California liberals being like, ooh, baseball. We care about baseball now because our team is good again and we're in the World Series. And to have all the New Yorkers like, first time, long time, the Yankees are the best team in the entire country. We're going to win every single year. 28 rings, SM.
Great impression.
From the back.
First time, long time is
Dan,
my favorite.
What happened to your Orioles?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a great question, Brody. I'm glad you asked.
That's a great buy or sell question.
What's better for baseball? Is it the Subway Series or is it Yankee? We're just going to already throw dirt on the Guardians. Or is it Yankees Dodgers? It's Yankees Dodgers.
It's Yankees Dodgers for sure. Coast to coast, you have probably, I'd say like 4 out of the 5 biggest names in baseball on either side of that game right now.
We got called attention dorks for our poll question. I thought that was kind of funny.
Attention dorks.
Yeah, apparently we're just trying to get clicks. Because that's all we care about here on the After Hours.
We love clicks. Give us your clicks.
Who wins the World Series, Dan?
The Yankees.
Who do you think I'm going to say?
It's a sweep for the good guys. I think the Yankees are going to win the World Series as well. If you missed Buy or Sell tonight, check it out at soundcloud.com/afterhours1620. It's brought to you by Controlled Comfort Heating and Air. It's fall. You know what that means. It's time to get the maintenance done on your HVAC unit. Be prepared so you're not hanging out with our good friend Jack Frost in your living room this December. Head over to controlledcomfort.com. Set up a maintenance appointment to have peace of mind about your furnace this winter. They're also going to make sure that the warm weather months didn't take too much of a toll on your AC unit as well. We'll be right back with our Papillion Sanitation Trash Takes the Night here on 1620 Zone. Hey, everybody, it's Jimmy Allen here for Williams Law. Williams Law. Let Bob Williams defend you or your loved ones if you've been wrongfully accused. Maybe you're facing a DUI charge. Maybe you have questions about some of the trouble your son or daughter's gotten into over the summer months. Let Williams Law give you a free, no-obligation legal consultation by heading over to WilliamsLawLLC.com tonight. They'll give you the answers you're looking for and help explain your rights. Check out WilliamsLaw.com tonight. 7:20 on a Wednesday night here on 1620 The Zone, brought to you by Pyramid Contractors. Over a decade of being number one in roofing in Omaha. Check out pyramidroof.com to book your free estimate tonight. It's time for our Papillion Sanitation Trash Takes of the night. What we're going to do here is we're going to put up another poll question because all we care about is attention here on the After Hours Lounge. Brody, Dan, and I will all give you a hot take. You'll vote on who had the best take, and the person with the least amount of votes will have the trashiest take of the evening. I will start us off. I don't have a problem with Kirby Smart shoving quarterbacks that run over to his sideline. Listen, I believe him. Kirby Smart took to the podium today and talked openly that it was an accident. He was just trying to rush to get to the official and get the instructions for the next play and the timeout called. And I believe that. He seems sincere about it. He not only did he call the head coach at Mississippi State, he called the quarterback too and had a conversation. Excuse me, I'm sorry, and apologized to Michael Van Buren. And to me, you don't do that unless it's a sincere, like Kirby Smart was never going to get fined or anything like that. In the heat of the moment, and when you're trying to, we talk about managing clocks and issues with coaches doing that all the time. We talked about how smart Dan Lanning was in the last segment. Kirby Smart is up there with that level of intelligence and probably had no idea who he was shoving. Just saw a body in front of him, just assumed it was one of his guys to get to an official.
Yeah, and I mean, for all the flack that we've seen about the Kirby Smart shove, it was not a hard shove.
It wasn't a hard shove, but there was some force behind it. Yeah,
there was some force behind it, but it wasn't like, you could tell it wasn't like a malicious shove.
Yeah, he wasn't trying
to be mean. He wasn't trying to be the bad guy. He obviously was just trying to get something done.
Yeah.
And he was like, I see someone in front of me. And to be fair, I think Kirby Smart would shove a ref who's in front of him.
Yeah.
His
own mother.
Another coach. Anyone. If he's trying to get that play in and get the next time out called, I no problem with that. My trash take of the night. And it was going to be my random Dan question. Oh. But it is now officially.
We don't need that.
My trash take. If you are going to induct fans into any sort of Hall of Fame, I expect you to keep the level that you have already given me.
Does Steve Bartman deserve to go in the Cubs Hall of Fame?
Yes.
Agreed. Good.
And then they'll throw bricks at him at the ceremony.
They've won a World Series. I think he's been forgiven.
Folks,
yeah.
There's a man in New York City
There's
now
a lot of men
who is officially in the James Naismith Hall of Fame. His name is Spike Lee.
Oh.
He is in the Hall of Fame as a super fan. What? And when you say Knicks basketball,
he deserves it.
The top three people you think of are Patrick Ewing, Charles Oakley, and Spike Lee.
Yep.
And not in that order. If you are a person of my age who grew up watching Spike Lee movies and knowing Spike Lee as
is Charles Oakley the third person on that list?
Probably not. But he was the name that came to mind when I said it.
It'd be Latrell Sprewell for me. But go ahead. Sorry.
I can't remember who that other guy was, but it's perfectly fine.
Stephon Marbury.
Oh.
Carmelo Anthony.
Yeah, I think it's actually.
Once a nugget, always a nugget, baby. But Spike Lee, 100%. If you're going to keep putting fans into a Hall of Fame,
They need to be that level.
Take a page out of the Naismith book and understand that it needs to be the most recognizable fan in your organization who goes to literally anything that happens at Madison Square Garden. If they pan a camera around, you are guaranteed to see Spike Lee sitting feet away from the action.
I need to get that sweet red Yankees jacket he had at the game one of the ALCS. By the way, that thing was
actually,
awesome.
When I saw the picture, they had a bunch of pictures.
Think of me?
They had a bunch of pictures of him throughout the years sitting courtside at Madison Square Garden, and I was like, "Is the Malcolm X hat still available? I would love one of those X hats. I've wanted one for years. It's amazing."
Brody,
by the way, is still available.
I have to read this quote first.
Okay.
To have some explanation for mine.
This is called good journalism, by the way. Go ahead.
I mean, y'all see Ashton Jaunty. It's not like we haven't seen a running back that good. We haven't seen a player that plays both ways, and I'm going to keep saying that. That's what Travis Hunter said earlier today. I think
so. Really quickly, a little bit of critiquing. If you're going to read it correctly. It's Ashton.
Ashton.
There you go.
Apologies. I think he's completely wrong. He is playing, I think, the closest person to play like him is Barry Sanders.
But if Travis Hunter had 95 catches, how many yards would he have?
Husker Country weighs in on our Knicks takes. Willis Reed. I think I would put Willis Reed above on that list also for Knicks.
Okay.
Good take, Husker Country. Here, and I wanted to bring this up, and I'm glad you throw this in here, Brody. We talked about this last night. I think Travis Hunter has to play on Saturday to be considered for the Heisman Trophy, because it's such a rarity for somebody of his volition, whether it be wide receiver or cornerback or somebody that plays both, to be considered for the Heisman. Missing time is enough to keep people from voting for you. And listen, I think Ashton Jeanty absolutely deserves the Heisman Trophy. He's got my vote right now, even though I don't have one. But listen, Travis Hunter is absolutely a one-of-one type player, and I think he deserves some consideration as well. And if he continues to play at the level he's been playing up until this point and doesn't miss any time, it's going to be really, really hard and take a once-in-a-lifetime performance like we've seen through the first half of a season from Ashton Jeanty. But listen, Dylan Gabriel did himself some favors on Saturday too.
He sure did. But you know what? I will say I was, a little bit down on the Ashton Jeanty train. Watched the Boise State game, watched a couple of the interviews that he's given.
He's good.
He's only halfway through the season. And I love when he was getting interviewed by Nagandi and he was like, oh yeah, there's a bet going on right now. What's that bet? And he goes, oh yeah, one of my offensive linemen bet me that if I don't get 2,000 yards this season, that I have to cut off my locks. He has to play 6 more games if he can rush for literally just 200 yards per game on average.
That's still a lot.
That will still be 2,400 yards total. Actually, 2,500 yards total. So he could have one off week and still run for 200 yards in every single other game. And he doesn't have to cut off his dreads.
Yeah. And they're on a bye this week and they UNLV next week. But man, he's really good.
He's so good.
Yeah. And obviously their one blemish on the season is that close loss to Oregon. It's going to be really hard to keep them out of the college football playoff at this level, especially if he can keep running the way he is. They finished with UNLV, Nevada, at San Jose State, at Wyoming, and Oregon State to close out the season. I think they beat Oregon State, especially if he's staying on the trajectory he's on. 1,248 yards. He's run for 30 less yards than his quarterback has thrown for this season, by the way. And he's got just a mere 17 touchdowns on the season on the ground as well. We got to get to John Walker from the Omaha World Herald. We're going to ask him who he thinks of when he thinks of the New York Knicks. When we come back. If you missed that segment, check it out at SoundCloud.com/AfterHours1620 is brought to you by Jerry Ryan Clothing and Sportswear. It is the premier suit buying experience in the Midwest. They got sports coats, slacks, ties, golf polos, you name it. Jerry Ryan has it. They have the best when it comes to Mizzen and Main, Johnny O, all of the best brands at the best place to buy your Husker and Jays gear. It's Jerry Ryan Clothing and Sportswear. Stop by 78th and Dodge. Get your closet ready for game day. Speaking of game day, we're going to talk to John Walker about the new basketball court at the CHS, and we come back on 1620 Zone.
Well, it may be your first time, but I've been telling you about it for a long time, and that is Pepper Jack's Grill. Yes, Pepper Jack's has 10 great local locations where you can get just what you want tonight. Like me, if you're still a little bit hungry, or you're going to be hungry tomorrow, the day after that, and maybe you're going to be hungry on Saturday when you're doing various things. You can go to Pepper Jack's right now, get that steak gunner Philly just the way that I like it with all the vegetables, a little bit of that jalapeno juice, and of course, I tell you every week, don't skip on the fries. They're amazing. They're great. There is literally nothing better than the fries from Pepper Jack's. So if you want to be just like Dan Campanen in the After Hours Lounge, try one of Pepper Jack's 10 great local locations tonight.
7:32 on a Wing Wednesday edition of the After Hours Lounge, brought to you by our friends at Pyramid Roofing. If you need your windows, gutter, siding, or roof replaced, work with the best. Work with Pyramid Roofing by heading over to pyramidroof.com tonight. Speaking of the best, John Walker, the best the Omaha World Herald has to offer, now joins us now here on 1620 The Zone. John Walker, how are you tonight, sir?
Man, I'm good. I don't know though. We still got Tom Chattel and Sam McEwen, and I'm still the newbie in the sports section, man.
Dan says all those guys are overrated off air, so I'll bring that to the air for
man, if he says it.
Tom, 402-951-1620 if you want to pick a bone. Dan camping it. Hey, when we say New York Knicks, who's the first person that comes to mind for you?
Probably Melo.
Okay.
Just because, like, around my cognitive years, like when I actually started to care about sports, was right around the end of his time in Denver and the beginning of him in Amari Stoudemire in New York.
You cool with Spike Lee going into the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's how we got on that. That's how we got on that discussion.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he's a fixture of New York basketball. So yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of fixtures, the CHI Center's got a new fixture of a basketball court. What do you think of the new look of Creighton's home basketball court?
Yeah, I like it. I like that it's unique. Creighton has kind of always had the traditional court, if you will. I say basic, not in a kind of bad way, but they haven't really had anything flashy like the feather paint or feather inside the arc that we saw with the new design. I think I'm in the minority here. I'm a bit indifferent on the values being like in the feathers. Maybe I'll come around. I think
like you don't have an opinion on it one way or the other.
Yeah. Like I'm not like, oh, that's so good, and I'm also not like, nah, you could have left that off. Like it's really cool how they integrated it in there. I wasn't sure how they were going to when I was kind of told, what some of the features were going to be. But that's how it played out, and I think that's the way to go. I just don't have an opinion on it one way or the other.
We're getting messages about this Knicks stuff. People are like, apparently people really have opinions about the New York Knicks in Omaha, Nebraska. Who knew?
And whether Spike Lee should be in the Hall of Fame.
First person that comes to mind when you think of the New York Knicks.
Okay. What's your guys'?
Well, Adam said, so we said Patrick Ewing, Spike Lee, and the debate.
Ewing was my second.
The debate was for who number 3 would be, and Adam has weighed in and said John Starks, and then we had somebody in the YouTube channel say Willis Reed. Somebody else weighed in and said Amari Stoudemire as well to caveat what you said.
And no Phil Jackson or Clyde the Glide Frazier yet. So
yeah,
I don't know.
I was going to say Clyde's probably missing, but a lot of people obviously know Phil from elsewhere. Not like
did he do something after his Knicks career?
No, not at all. Yeah. Right?
Hey, we're obviously just about 3 weeks away from tip off. What do you want to see out of Creighton in that opening game against Rio Grande to kind of tell you that this team is as good as it has been in the past?
Man, I truthfully, guys, I don't think I saw teams change every year in college basketball. Situations change in college basketball. I understand that, but I saw Texas Rio Grande Valley play when I was down covering Oklahoma State. And if that Oklahoma State team could clean up Rio Grande Valley, Creighton should have no problem doing the same. And so really what I'll be looking for opening night is I don't want to see an empty seat on the bench. I want to see Greg McDermott deploy everyone at one point or another. Because I think there are so many questions with this roster and how the pieces can fit together and what pieces are going to work to replace a couple of NBA guys. Yeah, just throw a bunch of stuff together. If you're up 20, let's see a lineup. I wrote a wing breakdown today that will, we're doing position breakdowns. I wrote a wing breakdown that'll be out tomorrow morning. And in the rotation part of it, I was like, is there a world somewhere in which we see Jason Green at the 3 and Mason Miller at the 4 or vice versa? Like, they're just that's just a small example, but there are so many things, so many lineups possible with this roster and how it's constructed. And so, yeah, I just want to see experiments.
What who are you most excited to see get on the court?
Man, I think Pop Isaacs would have to be the number one answer, like the obvious one.
Sure.
Like we went into this offseason saying, well, if Trey Alexander leaves, Creighton's going to have to replace 18 points a game. How are they going to do that? Well, a guy that scored 15 a game in the Big 12, which is pretty impressive in itself. But really, I think it might be Stephen Ashworth.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because he's been in the program for a year now. I think I'm not saying that Stephen Ashworth is going to have a Baylor Shireman-esque jump, but Baylor was pretty open about last year. Pretty open last year about in his first year after he transferred and joined Creighton. He kind of struggled a little bit to find his voice because Creighton's roster was so familiar with each other, was so set already for the most part. And that's kind of where Stephen Ashworth was last year. Like they all hold each other accountable. I'm not saying that, but I'm sure that Stephen Ashworth felt awkward trying to find his voice, at least initially, on a team that had Baylor Shireman, Trey Alexander, and Ryan Kalkbrenner. Well, now he's one of the guys. And so, yeah, I'm really excited to see Stephen Ashworth in a role that, he'll still run the offense, but it'll probably look different than it did a year ago. Maybe he scores 15, 16 a game instead of 11 or 12 or whatever it was. Maybe he takes more threes. Maybe he has more assists. I don't know. But I think we will see a different Stephen Ashworth than we did a year ago. I just don't know quite yet what that will look like.
Jump into the DeLorean with me and go forward 3 years. Let's say the Big East stays intact the way it is. Who gets booed more, Eric Ribey or Dan Hurley?
Oh, man, it'd be hard to separate them, right? They'd be on the court at the same time.
Well, I don't know if you remember last year, the student section was very direct in a 4-letter word who they were directing it at.
Yeah. No, I think it'd be Dan Hurley for sure. Creighton fans were so open to obviously, we're so open to the idea of getting Eric Ribey, right? Like, duh.
Yeah, he's good.
So I don't think there's as much. I think people understand that when you sit down for a recruiting pitch and there are the previous 2 national titles staring at you, it's really hard to turn that down. I think most Creighton fans understand that, but they absolutely hate the guy who's responsible for those 2 national titles and who's responsible for now taking the successor to Ryan Kalkbrenner.
Yeah, that was one of the, we always talk about, hey, 7-foot guys don't grow on trees. If you're able to replace one 7-foot guy with another 7-foot guy, that's a really good problem to have.
Yeah, and that, I think I was pretty open about throughout Eric's whole recruitment process that he was really kind of the top priority in this class, literally for that reason.
Yeah.
Like Hudson Greer, heck of a get, obviously. But he's not a 7-footer. He's not going to play in the post. And that's what this team's going to need next year. So Creighton's going to have to look elsewhere. Is it a portal big? Are they still on the recruiting trail? They are, obviously, just not for prospects as highly touted as Eric Ribey.
Not too many of them going to be 7 foot tall either.
Yeah, right. And so they're going to have to look elsewhere. But, a pretty, I don't want to say catastrophic, but a pretty devastating loss on the recruiting trail, to be honest.
Have you started thinking about dark horses in the Big East, and who you think could be a factor this year that maybe wasn't a year ago?
Yeah, I don't know if this is a dark horse.
If it's not UConn, it's probably a dark horse.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a dark horse because I've seen them in a lot of preseason, toward the top of a lot of preseason polls and whatnot. But Xavier, they're really, really interesting. Sean Miller is obviously a heck of a coach,
without a doubt,
but they have an entirely, and I mean returned 2 people from last year, an entirely new roster that can either go really, really well or very horribly. But I think upside, a team that was kind of middle of the pack last year could have a big jump this year. Probably Xavier.
Yeah, 9-11 in conference play is not the norm for what they want in Cincinnati. So I would be
No.
surprised if they don't have a massive jump as well. John, we appreciate it. We look forward to talking to you next week.
Thanks, guys.
That's John Walker from the Omaha World Herald. You can follow all of his work at omaha.com as well as by John Walker on Twitter. If you missed his segment tonight, check it out at soundcloud.com/afterhours1620. It was brought to you by AX Plumbing, Homer Residential. They can do it all. Check out axpservice.com for your plumbing, water heater, gas piping, or backflow prevention issues. AX Plumbing is locally owned and operated. They'll leave your home cleaner than they found it. Check out axpservice.com for more details tonight. We're giving you last call and winning some money here on 1620 The Zone.
Hey there, everyone. Dan Campanen here for Cunningham's Pub. Hey, you know what tonight is, right? If you haven't remembered or we haven't told you enough yet, it's a Wing Wednesday. And you can go to our Twitter page right now, like that tweet, retweet that tweet to win a $25 gift card to Cunningham's Pub. Tonight, we got to have the buffalo that is unlike any buffalo that you have ever had. And our dark horse favorite, every time we get it, the blueberry sriracha wings. You don't think every time I hear Jimmy say it, hey, I got the blueberry sriracha tonight, I go, that can't work together. And let me tell you, every single time I am proven wrong by my own hubris. If you want to find out what we've been talking about for all these weeks, go to at After Hours 1620, like our tweet, retweet our tweet, and maybe you can get a taste of those blueberry sriracha wings from Cunningham's Pub.
It is closing time, despite our lackluster producer knowing which song to play tonight. 7:48 on a Wing Wednesday edition of the
You
After Hours
distracted
Lounge.
me.
Brought to you by Bellevue University and Pyramid Contractors. If you're looking to stop going through winter with fog behind your windows or just being chilly in your own living room, have Pyramid Contractors come out and replace your windows, gutters, siding, your roof. They do it all. Check out pyramidroof.com to book a free estimate today. If you'd like to intern on the After Hours program and you're a high school student, we'd love to talk to you because the slacker we have right now can't even pay attention long enough to play the correct song.
You were talking to me about softball. Listen.
He's working his way down to a C+.
Yeah, the grade is dropping.
That grade drop.
I will tell you this.
25% of your grade is just playing closing time.
Let's be honest, that's way too low of a number. You were close to an A performance tonight.
Wow.
And then that happened.
Don't let him get you down,
Jimmy's
Brody.
favorite song, everybody.
You know who the band is?
That is okay.
Goes from a
that's
C minus all the way down to a B. It's the
know.
band Semisonic. There's an entire rom-com based around that song and who's the actual singer of that song is. We're gonna win you some money. Dan Campion 3-0 in his NFL predictions last week. As a whole, we went 7-2 as a show. We'll try to go 6-0 tonight. What we're gonna do here is we're gonna give you one game against the spread, one over under, and one prop bet as well. Dan, you're gonna love this. I'm taking the Texans +3 at Green Bay on the road. I didn't learn my lesson last week. I took the Cardinals +5.5. Your boys up in Lambeau made me pay for it. I don't think that's the case this weekend. CJ Stroud's the real deal. That offense is going to be humming. I'm going to take the under of 43.5 in the Colts-Dolphins game. I might take the under if it was 3.5 in Colts-Dolphins. Both those offenses are pretty atrocious. Jonathan Taylor back for the Colts this week, though, so that may make a difference, but I don't think it's enough to get to 43.5. And then give me the Commanders. John's Washington Commanders, the football team of Washington, score the first touchdown. That three-leg parlay is +649, courtesy of our friends at Omaha's Warhorse Casino Sportsbook.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Your turn.
I am going to take the game that you said that you will not be watching this weekend. Yes, the LA Rams are -6.5. Buy that line up if you can. Because if the Rams don't commit absolute bloody murder, then I have no more faith in the city of Los Angeles and in what SoFi Stadium could, can, and will be. Also, give me the under in the Carolina and Washington game this weekend. That is set at 51 points. It's going to be a tall task for the Washington Commanders to try and score 7+ touchdowns in that game. And then along that same line, because it was so successful, one other time.
It's so nice to do it twice.
Last week, the total touchdowns by the Minnesota Vikings give me over 2.5.
It's 3.5 for Atlanta, and they crushed it. Max Crosby, he's going to be traded like within the hour, right? Like, you're the Raiders, you're just going to start cutting bait with everybody and getting what you can.
Hey, Tom
if
Brady.
He's not traded, I think he's going to say, I need to be traded.
Yeah, he's going to probably pull his best.
Let me go
Adams.
somewhere else.
Tom Brady's the owner now, or partial owner.
He is a very minority owner in that franchise.
The man with the bad haircut still calls the shots.
Yeah, it is very surprising to me that they are letting a partial owner of a franchise be an analyst on TV for NFL football.
I don't think that's going to last much longer, to be honest.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to love it, even though there's a commercial talking about how much he wants to do it, which is weird, by the way. I think that's weird.
He's also getting paid, I can't remember the exact details.
An astronomical amount of money. Yes.
One would almost say a buttload.
Yeah. I like Antonio Pierce, the person. I don't see how he keeps that job either. They have regressed mightily this season. And the way this schedule's working out, and the fact that the AFC West looks to be vastly improved outside of them, you're probably you don't even need to say probably. They're picking in the top 5 of the draft.
Oh yeah. Well, and this has been such a wild year.
They
be a
beat the
Raiders
Ravens.
fan.
They beat the Ravens too, by the way. That's weird.
And just to be the Raiders this year, because you from a player standpoint, you got what you wanted. Everyone in that locker room was clamoring and saying, we want Antonio Pierce. Antonio Pierce is our guy. He's a culture guy. He's going to be our coach. And then you just
it doesn't help.
Poop the bed.
They're just not very good.
Just right off the bat. And yes, you are still in the AFC West, but really you've only got to compete with one team in the AFC West. The Chargers look good. The Denver Broncos
a lot better than I thought they'd look.
Are still dealing with Bo Nix and have Sean Payton as a head coach, which I have no doubt that they can figure it out at some point.
I didn't get the Bo Nix pick. I said it when they drafted him. I'm gonna say it again. I didn't understand then. Don't understand it now.
I get it. He's Bo Nix. He was an adult man by the time he got drafted.
Is he the same age as you, Dan?
Pretty close.
Almost. I think he's 3 years younger than I am.
Bo Nix is 24 years old.
Okay.
6 years
Pump
younger
the
than
brakes there, buddy. Yeah.
I was like, is he 27?
I thought he was 26.
You know what we haven't talked about yet? And I know we're up against it a little bit here. Cam Rising got approved for his 8th year of college football.
Oh, speaking
what
of
are we doing? What do we do? Like, who is like, at some point, you just go to Cam, it's time to start selling insurance or at least put your hat into the ring of the NFL.
Who's going to take him if he does transfer?
He's not going. He's going to play at Utah. He's got the eligibility to play at Utah. He's not going anywhere. They love him there.
Yeah, he's in love with Utah.
He's not asking for an 8th year of eligibility to go somewhere else. But at some point, if you're Kyle, listen, I know he's really good. But if you're Kyle Whittingham, you got to be like, can we really put our program's future in the hands of this guy that can't stay healthy? Literally, his hands can't stay healthy.
Yeah, and to your point, Jimmy, it is time for Cam Rising to do the right thing, to get in good standing, go down the block, go down to that gigantic white building that's in the center of town and start selling insurance.
I'm sure there's an agency somewhere in the Utah, Salt Lake City area that would love to hire you, Cam. You can always check out our thoughts about After Hours and what's going on in the football world by listening it on our radio replay page on 1620thezone.com or soundcloud.com/After Hours 1620. If you missed our bets tonight, they're brought to you courtesy of Warhorse Casino and Sportsbook, located on 63rd and Q. Slots, table games, and yes, the Sportsbook is now open. You can bet on Nebraska this weekend, too, since they're at Indiana. It's a game played outside the state of Nebraska. You can bet on it at Warhorse Sportsbook and Casino. If you or somebody you know is having a gambling problem, call 402-806-7344. For Brody Heidemann, Dan Campion, I've been Jimmy Allen. Happy National Liqueur Day, everybody.
Frangelico.